Ethan stared at the intergalactic marriage contract with a mix of excitement, desperation, and a slight buzz from the cheap space whiskey in his hand. His love life had been circling the drain for years. Humans weren't cutting it for him. Too picky, too judgmental, and way too concerned about credit scores. An alien bride? Mysterious, exotic, and best of all, guaranteed. The ad had been simple. Lonely? Tired of rejection? The Zyrene matriarchy offers you a beautiful wife, no appearance disclosure until wedding night. He had questions. Mostly about the no appearance disclosure part. But the promise of companionship, and let's be honest, sex, was too tempting to resist. A robotic marriage consultant hovered nearby, its voice painfully chipper. Once you sign, you are legally bound to consummate the marriage. Breaking the contract results in immediate planetary exile. Have a wonderful romantic journey. Ethan hesitated. Consummate is a strong word. Do you wish to hear the definition? I really don't. Too late. The AI launched into a disturbingly detailed breakdown of alien-human intimacy laws. Ethan sighed, signed the contract, and braced himself for whatever the hell he'd just gotten into. 2 days later, the first message arrived. A voice, soft, silky, sinful in all the right ways, spoke through his holocom. Hello, my future mate. I am Zyra. Ethan almost dropped his drink. Damn. That voice. Rich and honeyed, with just a hint of a purr, like a woman who knew exactly how to use it. His brain went straight to the gutter. He scrambled to compose himself. Hey. I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you. Nice indeed. I have been learning about humans. You are intriguing. A seductive alien studying human men? His ego shot through the roof. Oh yeah, he grinned. What's intriguing about us? Your stamina. Ethan coughed on his drink. Excuse me? The endurance of human males. It is fascinating. A pause. I am eager to test it. His brain stalled. Was she flirting? He really hoped she was flirting. The next few weeks were a blur of late-night calls, teasing conversations, and an ever-growing obsession with her voice. Zyra had a way of talking that made everything sound suggestive. Even normal phrases like, I cannot wait to wrap myself around you, left him sweating. One night, after an especially steamy chat about intergalactic pleasure rituals, he asked the big question. So why can't I see you until the wedding? A long silence. Then, a low chuckle. My kind values surprises. That was not comforting. Define surprise, because I swear, if you have mandibles, I need to mentally prepare. She laughed, deep and throaty. You will like what you see. His body believed her. His brain was still filing complaints. The marriage agency wasn't helping. Every time he asked about her species, they dodged the question. The last conversation with customer support had been especially concerning. Congratulations on your upcoming nuptials. Have you updated your medical insurance? Should I? Oh, we strongly recommend it. Just in case. That did not answer his question. The final red flag came 2 days before the wedding, when a rep casually mentioned, Please note, the marriage contract forbids fleeing upon first sight. The shock clause is standard in all human Zyrene unions. Ethan nearly choked. Shock clause? A minor formality. Why is that necessary? A pause. Then a hesitant. Some grooms have a strong initial reaction. Like what? A heart attack? Oh, no. That only happened twice. Jesus Christ. He debated running. But her voice kept replaying in his head, husky, teasing, dripping with promise. He couldn't back out. At worst, she had a few extra limbs. How bad could that be? The wedding ceremony took place on a sleek, high-tech Zyrene vessel orbiting a luxury moon resort. Ethan stood at the altar, his nerves threatening to betray him. The officiant, a floating orb with glowing sigils, droned on about intergalactic unity and the sanctity of their union, but Ethan could barely focus. His bride stood opposite him, hidden beneath an elaborate silk veil that shimmered with an almost hypnotic glow. Her voice, though still sultry, still teasing, had kept him hooked through their last few transmissions. She'd whispered promises, hinted at pleasures that made his entire nervous system short-circuit. But he still hadn't seen her. The officiant finally reached the vows. Ethan cleared his throat. "I, Ethan Clark, take you, Zyra, to be my wife." The veil rippled slightly. Her voice came through, rich as ever. "I, Zyra, take you, Ethan, to be my mate." A spark of excitement shot through him. "You may lift the veil," the officiant announced. Ethan's heart pounded as he reached forward, fingers brushing against the strange, silky fabric. It was cool to the touch, almost alive, and as he lifted it, the first thing he saw was blue bioluminescence. His brain took 3 full seconds to process her. For large, glowing violet eyes blinked at him, framed by soft, dark tendrils that shimmered with shifting colors. She had luminous skin, deep blue with a faint pulsating glow, as if lit from within. Her lips were full, glossy, and objectively hot. But beneath them, instead of a human jawline, smooth tendrils curled like playful fingers, twitching slightly as if sensing him. Ethan's soul nearly left his body. Zyra tilted her head. "You are staring." He really was. His brain kept trying to find a reference point, but she was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Alien, yes, but also weirdly beautiful. His gut reaction wasn't fear. It was pure, unfiltered curiosity. She smirked, catching his expression. "You approve?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm experiencing a lot of emotions right now." Her tendrils quirked, her body shifting slightly under the ceremonial gown. "If you wish to flee, the doors are locked." A laugh burst out of him. He hadn't expected that. "I'm not running." He took a breath. "Just adjusting." Her smirk widened. "A promising answer." A low murmur ran through the crowd. Zyrene women watching with amusement, human guests looking seconds away from losing their minds. But Ethan? He felt the strangest thing, a thrill. The officiant clapped. "The bond is sealed. Let the honeymoon commence." "Oh, right." Zyra stepped forward, and her scent hit him. Sweet, floral, but with something distinctly heady. His body reacted before his brain did. Her voice lowered. "Come, mate. Our chamber awaits." Ethan's legs worked on autopilot as he followed his tall, glowing, multi-eyed alien wife into their honeymoon suite. The moment the door sealed behind them, Zyra turned. The playfulness from the ceremony was still there, but something hungrier lurked beneath it now. She moved closer, her tendrils shifting around her shoulders, almost like living accessories. "Are you nervous?" Ethan let out a half-nervous, half-horny chuckle. "I have no idea what to expect." She purred. Literally purred. "Then allow me to enlighten you." Her hands, soft, warm, gentle, ran over his chest, tracing him through his formal attire. Her tendrils curled against his jaw, testing, teasing, sending strange, electric shivers through him. He should have been overwhelmed. Instead, he was very aware of how hot she was. And judging by the way her bioluminescent markings pulsed, she was feeling the same. Ethan exhaled. "I think I'm into this." Zyra laughed, dark and rich. "You will be." Ethan had always imagined his honeymoon would involve candlelit dinners, maybe a romantic walk under the stars. What he hadn't anticipated was waking up in a bed that moved, not because of him or Zyra, but because it was alive. The moment he shifted, the mattress adjusted, wrapping around him like a gentle hug. He jolted. Zyra? His alien wife stretched beside him, her bioluminescent skin casting soft blue light across the darkened chamber. She looked completely at peace, her 4 eyes fluttering open lazily. MMM? Ethan gestured to the bed. It's alive? She let out a sleepy, amused hum. Of course. It regulates temperature and provides muscle stimulation during rest. His brain paused. So it's massaging us in our sleep? Her smirk was downright wicked. Yes. And yet, you claim humans are the advanced ones. He blinked. Okay, that's actually kind of awesome. She rolled onto her side, propping herself on an elbow. Sleep well? Ethan took a second to process exactly how well he'd slept. His body felt incredible. No stiffness, no soreness, just an easy, pleasant buzz. And then he remembered last night. The heat, the tangled limbs, the way her tendrils had curled around his wrists, his waist, his... Zyra's smile widened as she watched the realization dawn on him. You are remembering. His entire face burned. Vividly, he admitted. She purred. Good. Ethan dragged a hand down his face, half in awe, half in disbelief. He hadn't expected their chemistry to be that insane. She had been everywhere, her movements fluid and adaptable, responding to his every reaction like she was learning him in real time. She'd thoroughly ruined him. And judging by the smug look she was giving him, she knew it. So, he said, trying to regain some dignity, what happens now? Is there some post-wedding ritual? Zyra traced a finger down his chest, her tendrils shifting lazily. We are expected to spend a full cycle here, bonding, indulging, strengthening our union. Ethan's body liked that answer. His brain, however, had questions. And then? Zyra's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then we return to my world. Ethan frowned at the brief hesitation. Something wrong? She exhaled, fingers tapping idly against his skin. My people will be curious. That sounded ominous. Curious how? She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. They have never seen a human before. Ethan sat up. Wait. Never? Not even in trade? She shook her head. Trade is handled remotely. Zyrene do not leave our territory unless absolutely necessary. And we do not bring outsiders in. Then how the hell did I get approved? Her lips curled. I requested you personally. His brain short-circuited. Wait. What? She tilted her head. You believe this was a random pairing? Yes? She laughed softly. I spent over a year reviewing applicants. Ethan gaped at her. You screened me? Extensively. His entire reality shifted. You chose me. On purpose. She arched a brow. You find that surprising? Yeah. He ran a hand through his hair. I mean, I'm just some guy. A delivery pilot. You could have picked anyone. She studied him for a moment before answering. I did. His pulse skipped. Zyra leaned in, her tendrils brushing against his jaw, her voice low. I have no regrets. Ethan swallowed hard. Neither do I. Her smile was pleased, but there was still something unspoken in her gaze. What aren't you telling me? She hesitated, then finally said, Humans are unpredictable. That is why I chose you. Ethan frowned. That doesn't sound like a compliment. It is. She ran a hand over his shoulder, her touch thoughtful. Zyrene are careful, calculating. We do not take risks. We do not act without knowing the outcome. She met his eyes. But you do. Ethan wasn't sure what to say to that. You fascinate me, Ethan Clarke. His chest tightened. Before he could respond, there was a chime at the door. Zyra's expression immediately shut down. We have visitors. Okay. Ethan threw on a robe, still reeling from everything, as Zyra crossed the room and waved a hand over the panel. The door slid open, and 3 other Zyrene women stepped inside. Ethan blinked. They were tall, sleek, and clearly related to Zyra, same bioluminescence, same 4 eyes, but their expressions ranged from amused to intensely curious. One smirked. So, this is the human. Ethan glanced at Zyra. I feel like I'm being evaluated. Zyra exhaled. You are? The tallest of the 3 stepped forward, eyeing him like a science experiment. He does not appear fragile. Ethan's pride bristled. Thanks? The second one grinned. Does he have stamina? Ethan choked. Zyra's expression did not change. That is not your concern. The third, smallest one, tilted her head. We must ensure he is worthy. Ethan raised a brow. Worthy of what? Zyra's jaw tightened. Of being my mate. Oh. Oh hell. Ethan shot her a look. You left out the part where I had to pass a family inspection. Zyra's gaze flickered, unreadable. It is not optional. His stomach dropped. And what happens if I fail? The tallest one smirked. Then Zyra will be granted an annulment. Ethan stared. You're joking. She didn't blink. We do not joke. Ethan turned to Zyra. Tell me they're joking. Zyra exhaled. They are not. His entire body tensed. One night of mind-blowing interspecies sex, and now he had to prove his worth to a panel of intimidating, glowing alien in-laws. Awesome. He squared his shoulders. All right, ladies. Let's do this. The tallest one arched a brow. You are eager? Ethan grinned. I like a challenge. Zyra's tendrils twitched. Her sisters exchanged glances, then smiled. Interesting. The eldest sister circled Ethan slowly, assessing him with sharp, calculating eyes. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed in slow, deliberate waves, signaling deep thought. You stand with confidence, she mused. That is good. But confidence alone does not prove your worth. Ethan smirked. Good thing I've got more than just confidence, then. The second sister stepped closer, her gaze flicking over his frame with blatant scrutiny. Strength is vital. Can you fight? Ethan held her stare. I can hold my own. She tilted her head. Against a Zyrene? He exhaled through his nose. Haven't had the pleasure of testing that. The third sister, the smallest but most intense, finally spoke. You will. Zyra let out a slow breath. This is unnecessary. He is my choice. The eldest turned her head slightly. And the choice of one is the responsibility of all. If he cannot withstand us, he cannot withstand the pressures of being bonded to you. Zyra's jaw tightened. I will not allow you to harm him. Ethan placed a steadying hand on her arm before stepping forward. Let's get this over with. The 3 sisters exchanged looks, then nodded. The second sister extended her arm. Strike me. Ethan hesitated. What? Strike me, she repeated, expression calm. Let us see your speed. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I'm not really in the habit of punching my in-laws. The eldest smirked. You assume you can land a hit. His pride flared. Fine. He moved fast, feinting left before pivoting into a controlled strike. But she was faster. Before his fist could connect, she dodged with effortless grace, her tendrils snapping out, wrapping around his wrist like iron cables. In a blink, she flipped him onto his back, pinning him to the ground. The impact rattled his skull, but he recovered quickly. Okay, yeah. That was impressive. She released him, stepping back. Again. Ethan rolled to his feet. This time, he didn't hold back. He adjusted his stance, watching her movements, learning her rhythm. He struck again, this time using his full speed, only for her to redirect the blow with minimal effort. But he'd expected that. He twisted mid-motion, shifting his momentum, using her own counter to lock her arm. For a split second, he had leverage. Then her tendrils lashed out again, sweeping his leg. He crashed to the floor with a grunt. The smallest sister grinned. He adapts. The eldest crossed her arms. And he recovers quickly. Ethan exhaled, pushing himself up. So do I pass? The second sister tilted her head. Not yet. Zyra's voice cut through the room. Enough. The authority in her tone made her sisters pause. She moved toward Ethan, eyes sharp. You have seen his resilience. You have tested his reflexes. That is sufficient. The eldest considered her for a long moment, then nodded. Perhaps. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. So what else do I have to prove? The smallest sister spoke. Endurance. Control. Your ability to protect. He let out a dry laugh. You got a whole checklist, huh? The eldest smiled faintly. We take our responsibility seriously. Zyra stepped closer, her presence grounding him. You need not do more. Ethan met her gaze, then turned back to her sisters. I'll do whatever it takes. The second sister arched a brow. Even if it means pain? Ethan's jaw tensed. If it means standing by Zyra, then yeah. Silence. Then the eldest nodded. Then we proceed. A sudden shift in the air. A low hum vibrated through the chamber. Ethan barely had time to react before the floor beneath him glowed and collapsed. His body dropped. For a split second, he was weightless. Then he hit water. Cold, deep, and alive. He surfaced with a gasp, heart pounding. Above, the sisters watched from the edge of what was now a platform, their glowing forms casting eerie reflections on the liquid surface. Ethan treaded water. A swimming test? Really? The smallest smirked. Not quite. The water moved. A current pulled at his legs. No, not a current. Something was beneath him. A shape shifted in the depths. Zyra's voice cut through the tension. This is unnecessary. The eldest ignored her. Let us see if your human is truly as strong as you claim. Ethan barely had time to react before it struck. A serpentine mass surged from the depths, its luminous tendrils snapping toward him like whips. He twisted, barely dodging, sucking in a breath before being dragged under. Darkness swallowed him. The force was immense, the creature's grip tight, coiling around his torso, dragging him deeper. Panic surged. But panic wouldn't help. He forced himself still, ignoring the instinct to thrash. Instead, he focused, watching the way it moved, the rhythm of its coiling limbs. Then he acted. He twisted sharply, slipping through a gap in its grip, then braced against its body, pushing off with a powerful kick. He broke the surface, gasping. The creature followed. It lunged again, but this time, Ethan was ready. He dove aside, grabbing one of its tendrils instead of dodging. It recoiled in shock. He pulled hard, using its momentum against it, twisting it just enough to make it hesitate. That hesitation was all he needed. He surged forward, using every ounce of strength to flip himself onto its back, pitting it beneath him. The beast thrashed, but Ethan held firm. For a long moment, nothing but the sound of his ragged breathing and the creature's slowed movements filled the chamber. Then, finally, the beast stilled. Ethan released it. The creature sank back into the depths, retreating. Silence. Then, a slow clap. Ethan turned to see the eldest sister nodding. Impressive. The second smiled. You did not simply fight. You understood. The smallest tilted her head. He is worthy. Zyra let out a breath she had clearly been holding. Ethan pulled himself onto the platform, drenched, exhausted, but victorious. So, he panted, I passed? The eldest met his gaze. Then she knelt. A gesture of acknowledgement. The others followed. Zyra's expression softened, a hint of relief in her glowing eyes. You are one of us now, the eldest said. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his soaked hair. Well, that was fun. Zyra's lips quirked. Liar. He grinned. Yeah. But he had one. And he had no regrets.